The doctor didn't flinch when he said it, like he'd said it 1,000 times to 1,000 other people who'd walked in thinking they were fine. You tested positive for chlamydia. Have you been sexually active outside your marriage? The lights in his office buzzed overhead, too bright, too white. Everything else blurred out. No, I said, the word scraping against my throat. I'm married. He gave a small nod that practiced professional neutrality that made it worse. Then you should have a conversation with your partner. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even confront her, not yet. I just lay next to her in bed, the woman I thought I knew, listening to the way her breathing slowed as she drifted off, completely unaware. Her shoulder brushed mine. I moved away. The next morning, I made the call. Hey, just wondering if you've noticed anything weird lately. It's health stuff. My brother, Evan, chuckled. Weird how? I tested positive for an STD. Thought I should ask. I was aiming for casual. I sounded like I'd swallowed glass. Silence. Just for a second. But long enough. Shit, he said finally. Yeah. I had a similar situation. Few months ago. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the mug she always left in the sink instead of putting in the dishwasher. My hands were cold. You didn't think to tell me? I didn't think it mattered. We're not exactly overlapping, right? And that was it. That one word. Overlapping. It took a second. Maybe two. Then the blood drained from my face. I said nothing. Just hung up. I sat on the kitchen floor for nearly an hour, staring at the grout between the tiles, remembering how she used to joke about how gross it was when we moved in, how we were going to retile it together one weekend. That was 5 years ago. I thought about her late-night showers, the new lingerie she never wore for me, the wine bottles she said she was sharing with coworkers after meetings, the way Evan started coming around more, always helping, always laughing a little too hard at her jokes. She'd touch his arm when she said something clever. I told myself I was imagining it. I wasn't. Later that evening, I watched her stir vegetables in the pan like nothing had changed, her profile soft in the dim kitchen light. She had no idea I knew, so I let her keep not knowing. And I started looking. Emails. Passwords. Her phone when she left it charging on the counter. Patterns started to form, little digital echoes of truth. One of her email folders was labeled Journals. Inside were notes she'd written to herself. Some going back years. The first time I kissed him, I thought it was a mistake. Evan makes me feel like I exist again. I don't want to hurt Jacob, but I already have. Each line was another fracture. Not just in our marriage. In me. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I smiled through dinner. Asked about her day. Made love to her that night. I don't know why I did it. Maybe to confirm it. Maybe to reclaim something. But it didn't feel like love. It felt like autopsy. The next day, I made an appointment with a divorce attorney. I didn't tell her. Not yet. I was gathering everything. Then something else happened. Something that twisted the knife in ways I hadn't even prepared for. A second envelope showed up at my door. No return address. Just my name on the front. Inside was a single photograph. It was taken from behind the hedge outside Evan's house. Blurry, grainy, but unmistakable. My wife. My brother. Naked in his living room. Not passion. Routine. Comfort. On the back, someone had scrawled a single word in black ink. Thought you should know. The photo sat on my desk like it was breathing. I couldn't touch it. Couldn't bring myself to destroy it either. It was too surreal, too deliberate. Someone had been watching them. Watching us. The handwriting was unfamiliar. Locky, erratic, like someone trying to disguise their script. But it didn't matter who sent it. What mattered was that they knew. Someone out there knew what was happening under my roof before I did. And they wanted me to see. It was a Tuesday when I decided to follow her. I called in sick. Watched her get dressed in the mirror, choosing a blouse she usually saved for dinner with clients. She lingered on her perfume longer than usual, sprayed it low on her stomach, like she was preparing for something close. Intimate. I watched her without blinking. She didn't notice. She kissed my cheek on the way out the door. I held it for an extra second. She thought it was affection. It was goodbye. She didn't go to work. She drove downtown, parked 3 blocks from her office, and walked the opposite direction. I kept my distance, pretending to be someone else. Just another stranger on the street. She met Evan in the back lot of a bakery that closed months ago. He was already there, leaning against the driver's side door of his car. He looked casual, bored. Like this was a habit, not a secret. They didn't kiss at first. Just talked. Close. Heads tilted together, bodies turned inward like magnets. Then she touched his face. A slow, practiced movement. Her thumb across his jaw. Familiar. Loving. I turned away. I already knew. But seeing it, it broke something clean in me. I waited until they drove off separately. I didn't follow this time. I already had what I needed. When I got home, I opened the journal folder again. There were dozens of entries I'd skimmed before, trying to protect myself. Now, I read every single one. He never looks at me like Evan does. Some days I wish I could disappear. I already feel halfway gone. I hate the way Jacob needs me to be okay all the time. I'm not. I feel seen with Evan. He knows the version of me I buried to become someone else's wife. There it was. Not just betrayal. Not just infidelity. It was resentment. Grief. Want. I wasn't a victim in her eyes. I was the cage. I should have been angry. And I was. But beneath that, something else stirred. Had I been blind? Or just afraid to see it? The problem with betrayal is it's never about the first lie. It's about all the moments that came before it. The ones you ignored. The ones you explained away. Like how she used to flinch when I walked into a room after a fight. Or how Evan stopped bringing his dates to family dinners. How he always offered to help her move furniture, paint rooms, clean out closets. He was always around. More than a brother. Less than innocent. I called my attorney and asked about the house. About shared assets. About collecting evidence. She didn't ask why. She could hear it in my voice. But it wasn't enough. I needed to understand how deep this went. That night, I did something I never imagined I'd do. I invited Evan over for a drink. He showed up with that same crooked grin he's always had. The one that worked better on women than it ever did on me. I handed him a beer, and we sat on the porch like we used to when we were kids. "You good?" he asked, nodding toward me. "You sound off." I took a sip, then leaned back, watching the way the light from the kitchen spilled across the grass. My voice was steady. "Ever think about how weird it is? That we married women who never really knew us?" Evan looked at me, confused, but not alarmed. "Sometimes." "Yeah." I looked over at him, and something cold settled behind my eyes. "You think you know someone. Then you find out they're living a different life. One you weren't invited to." He stiffened just slightly. Blinked once. The beer paused midair. I smiled. "You okay, man?" "Peachy." He stayed another 20 minutes. Talked about nothing. Sports. Work. Our dad's bad knees. But his eyes kept flicking to me. Watching. Measuring. Like he was trying to figure out if I knew. I did. After he left, I called her. "I miss you," I said. "Want to get away this weekend? Just us." There was a pause. "Really?" "Yeah. I think we need it." And just like that, she agreed. Guilt sounds a lot like gratitude when you're not listening close enough. She had no idea the kind of getaway I had in mind. We drove up on a Friday afternoon. The cabin was mine, technically left to me by an uncle I barely remembered. It sat on the edge of a lake that never got warm, even in summer. A place people forgot existed unless they needed to disappear. She packed light. Always did. A duffel bag with just enough. A paperback novel she wouldn't finish. Sunscreen she'd never use. She dressed in layered softness, like she wanted to be photographed by a memory, not live in one. The silence between us wasn't tense. It was something worse, familiar. I made small talk while she stared out the window, answering with the occasional uh-huh and yeah. But I saw her fingers fidgeting with the hem of her sleeve. She felt it too, the unease. Something had shifted, not just in me, in her. She kept glancing at me like I might say something dangerous. I didn't. Not yet. The cabin hadn't changed in years. Still smelled like cedar and old books. I watched her walk through it slowly. I was trailing over the furniture like it belonged to someone she used to be. Her voice was quiet when she said, "I forgot how peaceful it is here." I nodded. That's what I wanted. We spent the first night drinking wine on the deck. The lake was glass. Moonlight scattered across the surface like broken teeth. She leaned into me, resting her head on my shoulder, and for a moment, I let it feel real. I needed her to believe we were okay. She laughed a little, halfway through her second glass, and said, "Remember the first time we came here? You carried me over the threshold like some cliché." I smiled, though it didn't reach my eyes. "You hated it. Said it smelled like wet dog." I was being dramatic. "You always are." She flinched at that, just barely, but covered it with a smile. I watched the crack form. The next morning, I let her sleep in while I walked the trail that curved around the lake. I needed time, not to think. Thinking was over. I needed to feel the edges of what I was about to do. I wasn't a violent man. Never had been. But this wasn't violence. This was symmetry. When I came back, she was in the kitchen, barefoot, pouring coffee into the mug with the chipped handle. The same one she used last time we were here. I wondered if she noticed. We spent the day pretending. Pretending to read, pretending to talk, pretending to care about what the other was saying. She never brought up Evan, not even once. That told me everything. By dinner, I could see it. Her eyes had started to dart to her phone. Not checking it, not texting, just wanting to. That pull, that gravity, the urge to touch something familiar when you're afraid. I made her pasta. Her favorite. The same one Evan used to make for us when we visited him during his chef phase. Back when all of this was still unspoiled. She twirled a bite on her fork, then set it down. "You're being kind," she said. I kept my gaze steady. Shouldn't I be? I don't know. Should you? I let the silence stretch. Long enough that it turned into something sharp. Then I said, "Do you think we're beyond repair?" She blinked. "Where is this coming from?" "Just a question." Her voice got small. "Sometimes I think you don't really see me anymore." "Oh, I see you." Something flickered in her. She stared down at her plate like it might say something different if she waited long enough. "I'm trying," she said, finally. "I want to be better." Better for who? I don't know. For you. For us. Us. I almost laughed. Instead, I stood and cleared the table. She followed me outside that night, sat beside me in the cold with her knees drawn to her chest like a child. The stars were loud out there. Too loud. "Jacob," she said, "what would you do if I told you something awful?" I'd listen, even if it changed everything. I didn't look at her, just stared out at the black water. Everything already changed. She didn't say it that night. She couldn't. She needed more time, more guilt, more fear. So I gave it to her. I let her sleep beside me like nothing had happened. Let her tuck her legs against mine, curl her fingers into the hollow of my chest. Let her pretend she still belonged there. Because the most dangerous lies are the ones we need to believe. And I wanted her to believe this one a little longer. Just long enough to forget what I might be planning. The next morning, she made breakfast like she was trying to anchor herself in a life she barely recognized. Scrambled eggs, toast, coffee. She even hummed while cooking. A nervous habit. Something from childhood. I watched her from the doorway. There was a moment, brief, fleeting, when I thought she might confess. Just lay it all out on the kitchen table, next to the plates and the orange juice, and see if I'd still sit down. But she didn't. Instead, she smiled and asked, "Can we go kayaking today?" Like before. I said yes. We paddled silently across the lake, the surface so still it felt staged. Her hair blew across her face, and she kept pushing it back, fingers trembling slightly. She was unraveling. Not enough to show, just enough to sense. Halfway across, she turned to me. I keep thinking about the last time we were here. I nodded. You were different then, she said. Lighter. Like the world didn't press down on you so hard. Maybe it was a peace offering. Maybe she was trying to rewind us. Either way, I let the words hang between us like bait. I used to believe you were the one good thing I had, she added. Her voice was small, measured. I could feel her testing the water. And now? I asked. She didn't answer. Later, back at the cabin, I went out to the shed behind the property. It was cluttered with things my uncle had left, old tackle boxes, cracked paddles, moldy life vests. I wasn't looking for anything specific. I just needed to touch something that didn't lie. That's when I saw it. A dusty bin labeled tools. I pulled it open. Inside, rope, duct tape, a rusted hammer, and a heavy-duty lock. Options. I closed the lid and walked back inside. She was in the bedroom, scrolling her phone. I leaned in the doorway until she noticed me. You still text him? I asked. Her hand jerked. Barely. But I saw it. What? Evan. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. So I walked closer. Sat beside her on the bed. You're not good at hiding things, I said quietly. Your phone lights up every time he messages you. You always glance at it, then look away like you're doing something wrong. Her face turned pale. The mask cracked. I didn't mean for it to happen, she whispered. There it was. I stood. When did it start? She swallowed. Last Christmas. After that fight we had, remember? I remembered. I was lonely, she said. You weren't there. Not really. You were somewhere else. Always angry. Always tired. And Evan. He listened. I almost laughed. I didn't plan it, Jacob. You never do. You just end up wherever it's easiest. She flinched like I'd struck her. I was scared you'd leave me, she said. I didn't want to lose you. But you didn't mind sharing me. Her voice broke. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. She cried then, but quietly. The kind of crying you do when you're mourning your own reflection. Not because it hurts, but because it finally looks like the truth. I didn't comfort her. Just left her there, knees tucked to her chest, the same way she'd sat outside by the fire. That night, she didn't come to bed. I found her asleep on the couch, phone clutched in her hand like a talisman. I took it. Went outside. Evan's name was pinned to the top of her messages. His last text read, You okay? He's not suspicious, right? I stared at the words until they blurred. Then I opened the camera roll. Photos. Dozens of them. Not of him. Not of her. Of me. From across the room. In the yard. Sleeping. Reading. Standing in the kitchen. They were watching me. I scrolled further. Screenshots of emails. Bank statements. Notes about the house. About my routine. About my moods. They were planning something. Not just a betrayal. A dismantling. That's when I found the voicemail. From Evan. We'll make it look clean. No conflict. He's too passive. We just push hard enough, and he'll back away. He always does. I played it twice. Then I stood there on the porch, the lake behind me like an open grave, and made a decision. They didn't want to hurt me. They wanted to erase me. I went back inside. Put the phone on the nightstand next to her. Watched her stir slightly in her sleep. Then I whispered something only I needed to hear. You should have killed me when you had the chance. I waited until Sunday. She was folding towels, humming again, softer this time, like she could trick the room into feeling safe. I sat at the table with a cup of black coffee, watching her like a man studying the last few seconds before a building collapses. I want to talk, I said. She froze. Just long enough. Then she turned, careful, composed. About what? Us. Everything. She walked over slowly, like someone approaching a skittish animal. Sat across from me. Her eyes searched my face for signs of anger, maybe panic. She didn't find either. I was calm. Calm the way a quiet room gets right before a screen. I found the messages, I said. The pictures. The recordings. Her breath caught. I know what you've been planning. What you both have been planning. She said nothing. Just sat there, frozen in whatever version of herself she thought I still believed in. Were you ever going to tell me? I asked. She opened her mouth, but there were no words. I leaned forward. You were going to make me look unstable. Push me out. Take the house. The money. My life. Her voice cracked. It wasn't supposed to go this far. But it did. Tears filled her eyes. Not regret. Not even fear. Just exposure. You don't understand it. No, I said. You don't. I stood, walked to the cabinet, and pulled out the manila folder I'd kept hidden in the lining of my suitcase. Evidence. Copies of everything. Paper trails. Bank transfers. Screenshots. The photo someone mailed me. I dropped it on the table. She didn't touch it. Just stared at it like it might explode. You kept receipts? She whispered. No, I said. I made receipts. I saw it click in her eyes, the realization that she hadn't been in control for a long time. That she'd been performing on a stage I built under her feet. I've got recordings too, I added. Voicemails. Surveillance. A copy of the keylogger I installed on your phone the night we got here. Her hands started to shake. Why didn't you say anything? Because you needed to believe I didn't know. That's what made it work. The room stretched quiet. The kind of silence that aches. Her chest rose and fell faster now. You're going to destroy us. I tilted my head. There is no us. There hasn't been for a long time. She stood abruptly, knocking her chair over. You think this makes you better than me? You think being quiet while I suffered makes you the good guy? I didn't answer. Because she was right. I wasn't the good guy. I was just the one who stayed standing. That night, I texted Evan. From Jacob, we need to talk. Cabin. Now dot. From Evan. You sure? From Jacob. Bring what you've been hiding. Or I go public dot. From Evan. Be there in 2 hours. She asked me what I was doing. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I let her pace. Let her stew. Let her unravel in the space between seconds. When Evan arrived, it was dark. I met him outside. Didn't say a word. Just pointed him to the back of the cabin. He followed me, smug as ever, like this was some misunderstanding that could be smoothed over with charm and an apology. Where is she? He asked. In the shed. He blinked. You kidding? No. Something in my tone gave him pause. I opened the shed door. She was there standing, unharmed, but pale, trembling. Her eyes red. She hadn't said a word since he texted back. When he stepped inside, I shut the door behind him and locked it. No lights. Just the sound of confusion breaking into panic. Jacob, Evan called. What the hell is this? I didn't answer. I slid the manila folder through the bottom crack of the door. You should read it, I said. You're insane. Maybe. But I'm thorough. Their voices inside started to overlap, panic rising, betrayal turning in on itself. You told him everything? I didn't. He was watching us. Evan. What did you say? What else did you tell him? That was the part one needed. The unraveling. I walked back inside and dialed my attorney. I'm ready, I said. Are you sure you want to proceed like this? I'm not pressing charges. Not yet. I just want everything documented. I sent her the folder, the call logs, the voice memos, even the backup drive. Let the law deal with what it could. As for the rest, I waited until the shouting in the shed turned to silence. Then I unlocked the door. Neither of them spoke when I opened it. They just stared at me, the illusion between us finally dead. I stepped back. You two should leave. Together, preferably. But you don't come back. Not to the house. Not to my life. Evan's jaw clenched. You think this is over? No, I said. I think it's just begun. They left before sunrise. Not together. Not exactly. He drove first, his tires spinning gravel like a threat. She lingered, packed her bag with trembling fingers and eyes that never met mine. I stood on the porch, arms crossed, watching her like you watch a fire burn itself out, too slow to be satisfying. She stopped at the bottom step, looked up at me one last time. You won't be okay, she said. I didn't answer, didn't flinch. She left. I stood there a long time after, watching the road empty behind them, the stillness of the lake thick as smoke in my lungs. You imagine it'll feel clean, this kind of revenge, like a cut you finally get to cauterize. But it doesn't. It just feels like waiting for something that never arrives. Back in the city, the machine started turning. My attorney sent the package of evidence to the right places: the courthouse, the firm handling our assets, the bank that held our joint accounts. The voicemail of Evan planning my emotional exit landed him in a consultation with his employer's ethics board. His face didn't quite survive the headlines that followed. She tried to play the victim briefly, claimed emotional abuse, said I was manipulating the narrative. But I documented everything. Her timeline crumbled. The tone of her voice in court, strained and performative, collapsed under cross-examination. I didn't smile when I won the house. Didn't celebrate when the judge granted me full control over our assets, citing her coordinated deception and financial malfeasance. Didn't even blink when she was escorted out of the courtroom by her lawyer, eyes red, shoulders shaking, dragging a designer purse she no longer owned. But I watched. I always watched. Evan tried to reach out weeks later. An email with no subject line. Just 3 lines of text. You win. Hope it was worth it. I never meant for it to go that far. I deleted it. Not out of anger. Out of apathy. My brother was a stranger now. A version of him I'd never known but always suspected. The charming grin. The quiet need to compete. The way he could walk into a room and shift the gravity. I'd seen it. I just hadn't wanted to believe it. As for her, I saw her once more. Months later. I was picking up groceries. A quiet evening. She was at the end of the aisle, staring at a shelf of canned goods like they might hold the answer to something. She looked thinner, tired, like a photograph left out in the rain. She saw me, but didn't move, didn't speak. I walked past her without stopping. She turned as I passed, her voice barely above a whisper. Was it worth it? I stopped, just for a moment. Then I said, without turning, no, but it was necessary. Outside, the air was cold and clean. I drove home, back to the house they thought they could steal. I made a cup of coffee, fed the dog, sat on the porch and watched the wind roll through the trees like something being rewritten. And I thought about how betrayal doesn't end in rage. It ends in stillness. When the storm dies, and all that's left is what you rebuild with what's left. No one's cheering. No one's watching. Just silence. And maybe that's the point. Some stories aren't about revenge. They're about survival. Thanks for watching. If this story pulled you in, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss the next confession. Until next time, take care and watch who you trust.